What is up YouTube, I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 in Wildrift, and this is my tier list for patch 5.3a. And while it was quite a small patch, a lot of really strong champions got nerfed, and a lot of weaker champions got buffed and are now quite strong. So let's jump straight into the Baron lane. In the Baron lane, we of course have our god tier champions that have remained very similar throughout the patches. We did have Heimerdinger and Mordekaiser in the god tier last patch. However, after the nerfs that they received this patch, there will still be solid picks, but I can't put them in the same tier as champions like Renekton, Aatrox, Camille, and Ornn, who will remain the god tier champions of the patch. They're gonna join the S tier champions that are still really good choices, especially in the right situations. So you can definitely still play Heimerdinger, you can definitely still play Mordekaiser and dominate, you don't have to worry about that. In the A tier, Pantheon has finally made it into the A tier for the Baron lane. I still would not recommend playing in Baron lane, he's probably better off in the jungle. However, he will join other picks that I consider to be pretty decent, if not very good. In the B tier, we see, actually a mistake, Swain should not be in B tier. He should be higher. We want to move Swain up to at least A tier. This kind of a mistake, I'm not going to bother editing it, but Swain should be A tier or even possibly S tier because he received some massive AP buffs. If you want to go an AP champion in the Baron lane and you can't play Akali, Swain is actually a great choice after the buffs. You guys were telling me how strong Swain was before this, and I don't think he was, and he probably wasn't. And he's received some massive AP buffs, so now his AP build is really strong. Let's move on to the jungle, where we do see a couple of changes in the top tiers. In the god tier, we have removed Gragas after the AP nerfs. He's still a solid choice, so he's still an S tier champion, even after the nerfs. But in the god tier, we're gonna have Pantheon, who's absolutely dominating this patch. He's quite easy to play, so if you want to learn how to play him and master him, check out my gameplay video on my second channel. Go and drop a subscribe there and watch the newest gameplay video that was just uploaded of Pantheon. And you're gonna learn everything you need pretty much to stomp games with him because he's quite easy to play. Of course, Rengar will remain the god tier. He's my permaban for the previous patch, and I'm going to permaban him this patch as well. Absolute menace in the jungle. And I've included a new edition of Wukong. Wukong has been underrated for a while, and I think he definitely does deserve to be in the god tier. However, he's definitely weaker than the other three god tier champions, but he's still quite a bit better than the S tier champion. So I decided to put him here anyway. In the S tier, of course, we have the same culprits, the all really good farm heavy OP junglers. If you want to go tank, we of course have the tank options, Mumu, Maokai, Nunu, but of course the damage options are still great, the farming jungle options are still great. In A tier you still have some very strong viable junglers, however they're a little further down because they're somewhat weak compared to the S tier champions. Nyla could actually be really good this patch with the armor penetration item changes. Now let's move on to the mid lane, where we're gonna see a removal from a god tier champion, which is Heimerdinger. Of course, after the nerfs, he's still a really strong mid laner, so he's still gonna be in the S tier. However, he's not gonna be as good as a Kassadin or a Yasuo or a Syndra, who are gonna remain the god tier champions of the patch. We actually also removed Morgana. We put her down into S tier. Now let's look at the new additions into the S tier, which is Veigar, Galio, and Swain. These champions were rated A and B tier in previous patches, but the buffs they received were really nice. Swain's gonna absolutely shine with his AP build. Veigar is very similar to Syndra in a way. They're both like mages, control mages, but Veigar is a lot better against shorter range champions. So if the enemy's picking a lot of like these dash squishy champions like the Echo, like the Akali, you can definitely use Veigar as a quick counter as long as you're safe in lane. Galio had all of his cooldowns reduced on his first ability, his third ability, and his ultimate, so he's an absolute menace in the mid lane as an AP build because you can keep spamming his first ability, and actually you do a lot of DPS in fights now. You're more of a mage anti-mage, right? So Galio could honestly, if I were to put another champion in the god tier, it might be Galio. I think he's really strong this patch, and you'll see him I have him pretty high up as a support as well. But let's move on to the ADCs for now, where we didn't have huge changes. The main change impacting ADCs were the armor penetration changes, which kind of make hyper carry ADCs a little better. I think it makes Jinx a little better. The on-hit ADCs got slightly nerfed, so Terminus won't be as good anymore, so Kai'Sa is going to actually have to leave the S tier and go back to A tier. However, the hyper carry ADCs like Caitlyn I think is really good, Tristan's really good, I think Jinx is surprisingly good. Usually I don't have her this high up. But the main star of the patch was Misfortune, who received some nice buffs to her first ability and her ultimate. Her burst damage will be really good, and you can do some crazy Cyrilda's builds to get that slow on your ultimate as well, with obviously Cyrilda's Grudge being buffed as well. So Varus and Xayah still remain the god tier, but we do have a new ADC that you can definitely try out and have a lot of success with, and that is the Misfortune. Moving on to supports, and we can see some very interesting changes in the supports. We only have one god tier support, and that is Lulu. Despite the nerfs in previous patches, Lulu just continues to be absolutely insane with a hyper carry ADC. Pair her up even with the lower tier ADCs like the Vayne, like the Twitch, and Lulu makes them into absolute beasts. However, in the S tier, we have Milio, who's actually in between god tier and S tier. I don't think he's as useful as Lulu. However, he's a lot better than the other supports in S tier, so I have him somewhere in between. You see Ornn and Galio joining us in the S tier. Galio, of course, received a lot of cooldown buffs, which are definitely going to help him as support. You can now ult all over the map with a way lower cooldown. And of course, your first ability, since it does do max percent health magic damage, it's going to be useful as support as well. So having on a lower cooldown does help there as well. And of course, you have the rest of the really good supports. Rakan has finally joined the S tier as well as an engaged support. Heimerdinger has fallen down all the way to A tier. I wouldn't personally pick him as a support. I think he's a lot better in mid and top lane. However, if you want to do some cheesy tactics, Heimerdinger can still be a decent option. Swain is in the B tier from C tier. The buffs were mostly on his AP build, so it's not really going to help as a support. And also, I have added Jarvan in my tier list after a lot of requests from Broken Support fanboys. There we go. Jarvan is in the tier list. He's in A tier. You can stop telling me to include him every single time in the comments. So this is it for my tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you disagree with some of my picks, please comment down below. Let's have a pleasant discussion about the meta. If you have any secret OP picks that I have not included here, please let us know so we can all climb together. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.